So this video is on the standard form of a quadratic relation, and you will recall we've already talked about the vertex form, which is a form that's easily used to determine the vertex of a parabola that represents the quadratic relation. The standard form is also called the expanded form, and it's basically an algebraic expression in its simplest form. So when we have an algebraic expression that's fully expanded, what we'll have is different terms of different orders, and you cannot reduce it any further. So two examples that are given in the minds on section, we have y equals minus 2x squared plus 3x minus 7. That is the standard form or expanded form of a quadratic relation. We can't make that any simpler. We can't combine the minus 2x squared with the 3x or with the minus 7. The other one that's given is y equals 3x squared minus 14x plus 5. Again, there's nothing we can do with that. It's already fully expanded. We can't simplify it any further. You may wonder why we would use this form. And one of the curious things you can see once you move to the action section is that the last term, so the minus 7 and the plus 5 in those two examples, are actually the y-intercept. So if determining the y-intercept is important for you, you can write your quadratic relation in this form. Now the standard form itself, moving on to just the action section, that first line, in its general sense is y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. The a tells you the step pattern, tells you the first number in the step pattern, and we can use the pattern a, 3a, 5a, 7a, and so on and so forth to determine the step pattern. That's the same as it was in the vertex form. And the c is used to determine the y-intercept. The c is actually the y value of the y-intercept. So if you're writing out the y-intercept of the parabola, it would be 0, comma c. So let's see how we can convert something from vertex form into standard form. So in example 1, you see we have 0.5 x minus 6 squared minus 12. The first step is to expand that binomial that has the minus 6. When we expand that, we get x squared minus 12x plus 36. And then we distribute that a term into the bracket, so we end up with 1/2 of every value there, so it's 0.5x squared minus 6x plus 18. And then we combine our minus 12 with our 18 to get our c term, which is 6. And in this question, they asked us to say what the y-intercept is, so we can just say, because we have a plus 6 at the end, our y-intercept is 0, 6. Now, we talked about using this form to find the y-intercept. Another reason why we would keep it in this form, the standard form, is that if we were asked to plug in certain values of x and determine points on the parabola, it's relatively easier to do so in standard form than it is in vertex form. So that's one reason why we would do it. And lastly, in order to make algebra easier, if we're going to be combining this quadratic relation with other quadratic relations, if we have two simplified forms of quadratic relations, adding them together is relatively easy to do, or doing any other kind of arithmetic operation to it. So let's move on to some other examples here. So convert the parabola. We have y equals x minus 3x plus 14 into standard form. And in this case, it's simply multiplying the binomials, so just like we learned in that expanding binomials, and then we combine the x terms. An application type question for example 3, here it says that we have the path of a basketball described by a quadratic relation in standard form, and we're asked to determine the height of the basketball after 2 seconds in the air. So we just substitute 2 in for t, simplify, and we end up with our answer, which is 9 feet high after 2 seconds. Let's try out some of these support questions, then we'll look at the what the quiz will look like, or the assignment will look like for this. So our first question, it says to write the following quadratic relations in standard form. Okay, let's look at this first problem. So we have x plus 1, x minus 1. What we're going to be doing here is multiplying these two binomials and then expanding, or rather than simplifying. So we have x squared minus x plus x, and then we have minus 1. So this then simplifies to x squared minus 1. That's what we have in standard form. Now, you'll notice that there is no b term. That implies that b equals 0 in this case. Let's look at another one. Let's do let's do d. I think some people might have some difficulty with that one because it's got fractions in it. So our equation is 3 over 7 x minus 4 squared minus 11 over 7. So after we expand this, we'll get 3 over 7 x squared. We'll have minus 4. Actually, I'll just do this in steps here. We have 8 x, and we have plus 16 minus 11 over 7. And we'll expand this. We end up with 3 over 7 x squared minus 24 over 7x plus 32, that'd be 48 over 7 minus 11 over 7. And we just simply, everything's going to be over 7 in this case. 48 minus 11 is 37 over 7. And there's a plus between there. So in this case, we have 3 over 7 is our A term, negative 24 over 7 is our B term, and 37 over 7 is our C term. If any of those would divide by 7, we could simplify that even further. But in this case, they didn't. So let's look at I'll do 2A. It says to state the y-intercept step pattern of the following quadratic relations. Actually, I'll leave 2A for you. I'll try 2B. In this case, we have y equals minus 2x squared minus 7x plus 16. So the y-intercept comes from here. So our y-int is 0 and 16. Our step pattern, I'll just write it on the side, comes from this minus 2. So we have our A term, minus 2. Then we do 3 times that, which is negative 6. 5 times that, which is negative 10. And so on. That's our step pattern. Okay, next I'm going to do the last question, which is an application type question. It says, a business's profits, let me make this a bit bigger so we can see here. We have a business's profits versus products produced are estimated using this algebraic expression. P is the profit in dollars, and N is the number of products manufactured in a day. So if the production cost increases by 2x minus 20, what is the new profit function for the business? So basically, that should be 2n minus 20, but it's P equals minus 0.1n squared plus 40n plus 500. And it's increasing by this 2n minus 20. Rather, the production cost is increasing by that. So we'll have to subtract this term because that's going to cut into their, that's a cost, so it's going to cut into their profit. So to simplify this, we have 40n minus 2n, so we have 38n. 500 minus a negative 20, so it's plus 540. That's how our profit for this company will change. Let's now look at the at what our quiz will look like when we do this. And what you see here, you'll have questions where the first one will state the y-intercept, the second one finding the step pattern, writing a quadratic relation in standard form. You'll do that for 4 questions of different types. And the last one is similar to that last problem we did. We have a one quadratic relation and another quadratic and a linear relation. We'll have to find out what the sum is of those. So those are the types of questions you'll see when you do this assignment.